This video was made thanks to my supporters over on Patreon. If you want these videos to stay completely free, then consider clicking the link in the description below and checking it out. Patreon is a membership site that I set up to get a more sustainable income stream, and it basically helps me focus on creating more high-quality videos for you. When you sign up today, you'll get behind-the-curtain rewards, such as an insider look at how I create these videos, early access to YouTube videos 1 week ahead of time, cool stickers and merch, the option of voting for the next video topic, and much more. So click the link in the description below to sign up now. John Frusciante is best known for being the guitarist and backing vocalist of Red Hot Chilli Peppers. He's been a part of many other creative projects too. He's collaborated with Mars Volta and created an extensive solo career with tons of material that's still unreleased. Over the years, he's gone through some tough phases like battling drug addiction, but luckily he's found a way out of it. He's now living a reclusive lifestyle outside of the public eye. He is still creating music though, and his legacy is stronger than ever. So in this video, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at his early history and remember why we love his music so much. This is Remembering John Frusciante. Frusciante's story starts in Queens, New York on March 5th, 1970. As you can imagine, he grew up in a home filled with music. His father, John Sr., was a trained pianist, and his mother, Gail, was a promising vocalist until she decided to become a stay-at-home mother. His parents later separated, and John ended up living with his mother in Santa Monica. Not even a teenager, Frusciante became interested in punk rock. And luckily for him, LA was already a booming punk rock scene. The 10-year-old taught himself songs by The Germs and GI in an attempt of self-expression. A year later, he started studying guitarists and bands such as Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, David Gilmour, Frank Zappa, King Crimson, Yes, Genesis, and Jeff Beck. He also heard about a local band called the Red Hot Chilli Peppers at age 14 from his guitar teacher at the time. Apparently, the guitar teacher was auditioning to become their new guitarist. At 16, he dropped out of high school with the permission from his parents to pursue the art of musicianship. He took classes at the Guitar Institute of Technology, but it didn't go long before he left. He then became a devoted fan of the Chili Peppers and became friends with Flea after Dead Kennedy's drummer D.H. Peligro introduced them to each other. There would still be some time before he ended up joining their band though. In the meantime, he auditioned for Frank Zappa's band, but decided it was a bad idea after he found out that Zappa had a strict policy against drug use. Quote, "I realized I wanted to be a rock star, do drugs and get girls, and that I wouldn't be able to do that if I was in Zappa's band." End quote. The Chili Peppers, on the other hand, were more open to the use of substances. Whether this led to better music is another discussion, but what's certain is that it led to a great deal of tragedy. The guitarist of the Chili Peppers at the time, Hillel Slovak, died of a heroin overdose in '88. Their drummer, Jack Irons, had had enough of the band after this tragedy and decided to leave. Vocalist Anthony Kiedis and bassist Flea decided to push through the tough times though and kept the band going. They decided to invite Frusciante to the band because of his skills as a guitar player and knowledge of the band's material up until that point. And when Frusciante got the call and invitation from Flea, he was exhilarated. Quote, "I wasn't really a funk player before I joined the band. I learned everything I needed to know about how to sound good with Flea by studying Hillel Slovak's playing, and I just took it sideways from there." End quote. Frusciante recorded his first record with the Chili Peppers in '88 and '89 with Mother's Milk. At first, he tried to emulate Slovak's playing style in addition to following advice from their producer Michael Beinhorn. Beinhorn wanted him to adopt a more metal-sounding guitar style. Now, the next album they worked on together was Blood Sugar Sex Magik in '91. They teamed up with legendary producer Rick Rubin, who had the idea of renting an old mansion in the Hollywood Hills. He wanted to expose them to an unorthodox setting and hopefully get an outstanding performance from them by doing so. And sure enough, Rubin's method worked. Blood Sugar Sex Magik sold over 13 million copies and threw the Chili Peppers into the mainstream spotlight. Frusciante was not in favor of their popularity though. He would often get into heated conversations after shows. Things were just too good to be true. Quote, "We're too popular. I don't need to be at this level of success. I would just be proud to be playing this music in clubs like you guys were doing 2 years ago." End quote. Frusciante left the band shortly after in '92 and was replaced by former Jane's Addiction guitarist Dave Navarro. Not a lot of people know this, but Frusciante joined practice sessions with Meat Puppets for a brief time after he left the Chili Peppers. It was a very short endeavor that never led to anything, but it's interesting to think about the fact that if things had turned out differently, he could have been the full-time guitarist of Meat Puppets from there onwards. Things really went downhill from there on with Frusciante. During the past years of playing with the Chili Peppers, he had developed a serious drug habit. Initially inspired by Flea to smoke weed before the shows, he went on to use harder and more dangerous drugs. When you look at the footage of Frusciante from this time, he certainly doesn't look healthy. He was severely depressed and coped with it by taking heroin. In an interview, he said that it was a way of making sure you stay in touch with the beauty instead of letting the ugliness of the world corrupt your soul. He kept himself busy by creating 4-track recordings, screenplays, and paintings during this time. Around this time, he also released an album that he had recorded earlier on, right after the release of Blood Sugar Sex Magik, and sometime between '91 and '92. The title was Ni unreleased and Usually Just a T-Shirt, an album that would become a favorite of his solo albums amongst many fans. In '97, he released his second solo album, Smile from the Streets You Hold. This was, according to articles on the web, an album release to acquire quote-unquote drug money. The contents of the album was recorded at various times dating as far back as the late 80s and up until the mid-90s. A lot of fans describe it as another deeply personal and visceral listening experience, just like his first album. I don't know how you want to interpret this. You might think Frusciante was mentally ill, drugged out, or highly spiritual, but he did mention in a few interviews how he frequently communicated with spirits from another world when making his music. Now, after 5 years of heroin addiction, he decided to stop in '96. But unfortunately, it didn't go long before he jumped back on the wagon again. It wasn't until his friend and Thelonious Monster vocalist Bob Foster persuaded him into checking into a rehab facility that he finally managed to kick the habit. From there on, he seemed to implement one healthy habit after another. He started eating better, tried Vipassana meditation, and did yoga. In '98, the Red Hot Chilli Peppers fired guitarist Dave Navarro and were at the brink of breaking up. After finding out that Frusciante was doing a lot better, Flea went over to his house and asked if he wanted to rejoin the band. Frusciante began sobbing and said, quote, "Nothing would make me happier in the world," end quote. Together, they released Californication in '99, which again turned into a massive hit record. Frusciante has later mentioned how this was his favorite music he ever made with the Chili Peppers. Moving on, he then released his third studio album in 2001, titled To Record Only Water for 10 Days. This was stylistically different from his previous solo albums in how it leaned more towards electronic music and a more formulaic structure, and it is yet another fan favorite amongst Frusciante fans. 2001 would also be the year when he recorded his fourth album with the Chili Peppers, By the Way. Frusciante remembers this time as one of the happiest in his life. He invested a lot of time and energy into becoming a better guitar player, taking inspirations from guitarists such as Johnny Marr, Andy Partridge, and John McGeoch. The early 2000s were some of Frusciante's most prolific years as an artist. He created a short-lived group called Ataxia with Joe Lally and John Klinghoffer, released his fourth solo album, Shadows Collide, and then announced during the summer of 2004 that he would release one album for each of the next following 6 months. In an interview with Electronic Musician on January 1st, 2005, he said, quote, "I was writing some of my best songs, so some of those albums have as many new songs as old songs. It was definitely the most productive time of my life." There's still tons of things I could go more in depth into when it comes to John Frusciante. I haven't even mentioned his collaboration with the Mars Volta and Omar Rodriguez Lopez, his last albums with the Red Hot Chilli Peppers before leaving again, or the solo albums he would release in later years. There's so much more to say about his influences, playing style, and technique as a guitarist too. Personally, I just get more interested in what he's done the more I learn, so there's definitely more videos for me to make about Frusciante in the future. So let me know in the comments what topic you would like me to tackle next when it comes to John Frusciante. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you later.